What is up, everybody? It's your boy MaximusBlack with another real estate video, and in this video we are going to be answering a question that I got in the comment section on the last video, and it is should you basically pay cash or finance your real estate purchase? Before we get into this and I actually show you the direct question, hit that like button. It's a great way to support what I'm doing here. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm just sharing you my knowledge in real estate, what I'm currently doing, what I've done in the past, and what I plan to do in the future, and giving you guys real numbers on real assets that I manage, that I have been managing over like the last 11 years. So big thank you. Hit that like button, and of course, leave a comment. Do you get stuff out of these videos? Do you have any questions, that sort of thing? Have you thought about getting in real estate? Are you in real estate? Do you already own a property? Let me know in the comment section. Let's get into the question. Mr. Black, I got a question. What are your thoughts on purchasing a smaller property full cash, given you have somewhat of cash flow outside of property? Are you considering do that in the future? The margins are low on rentals, but the biggest cost is that mortgage repayments. That's true. Does it mean you won't be able to take cash out? That does mean that you won't be able to take cash out for another deal, but if cash flow is your objective, then shouldn't that snowball once you've gotten a few properties? Okay. I'm going to answer that. And the answer to if you should pay cash or finance is a personal one. Okay? So everybody's different. First and foremost, you've got the Dave Ramsey approach, which is pay cash for your real estate. Dave Ramsey is super against debt, but that's sort of his whole MO because, you know, he knows that the average American typically is not good with debt, right? Credit card debt, you name it, student loan debt, payday loans, even mortgages. I mean, just, you know, debt can be a very powerful tool to create wealth and put you in a position of growth, or it can ruin you. It's just the way it is. So he really preaches buy in cash, and then you've got the traditional way, and what most wealthy people do, or people that are trying to grow a little bit faster than just say the natural, like, hey, I'm just going to save up and buy cash. It's very, very difficult to do that, and I'll explain. But, you know, a lot of people use debt, and if they use debt correctly, and you crunch your numbers and it's just part of the equation, then, of course, you can scale and make more money, you know, in the long term. But, of course, there's more risk. Also, some people may not put 20% down. They may put 50% or 70%. It really depends on the person and what your goals are. Some people have a ton of cash. They don't want to, they just do not want to manage 10 units, 50 units, 100 units. They've got a regular job. They just want to use real estate as a way to park money and preserve wealth while building it slowly over time. That's a great way to go in with cash as well and pay for cash if you are fortunate enough to have that type of money. But if you're looking to scale, obviously, financing is definitely the faster way of doing it. So let's go ahead and just do a couple of quick scenarios. So first scenario number 1, cash. So we're going to be paying cash for this house right here. Look at this. Look at this house. Look at these windows. Okay. And we're going to say this house is $500,000. Just nice whole random number. You've managed to save up $500,000 in cash. Now, of course, this could be, you know what? Let's go with $100,000. Okay? Let's go with a $100,000 house. These are hard to find. Obviously, if you're in certain parts of the States, you can still find this. In Canada, it's real tough. But, you know, just for layman's terms, or like for, you know, just for the sake of it, let's say 100,000. This could be 500K, 300K, a million. The concept's all the same. So you manage to save up, you pay cash, and you rent this out for $1,200 a month. All right. So you're bringing in $1,200 a month in income. Okay. Now, even though you've paid cash for a property, you still have expenses, right? You still have things like taxes. You're always going to have property taxes, no matter what, even if you have properties paid off. You're going to have, fixes. So like maintenance. Okay. You're going to have, insurance. Okay. You're going to have insurance. And then you're just going to have random stuff. Because I don't know, maybe you still take care of the lawn care. You do snow removal for your tenant. I don't know. Maybe you don't have random stuff. I couldn't tell you. Maybe you have pests, right? Like you have a bug problem, and so you have a company go out and do sprays every month to make sure that these things don't. I don't know, but we're gonna put that down there because let's just be realistic here. Stuff happens. All right. So taxes might be $1,000 a year. Okay, on a $100,000 house, of course. Fixes. It might be $100 a month, so you're looking at $1,200 a year. Insurance, it might be $100 a month, $1,200. Again, these are just random numbers, but I'm just showing you guys. And then you might have random stuff at $1,000, right? So in total, you've got $4,400 in expenses. Okay. And then you've got $1,200 in cash flow a month. You times that by 12. You've got 14,400 in income. And then you're going to do, income minus expenses. You're left with $10,000 a year in cash flow. Okay. That's pretty good. Because you've paid $100,000 for the property and you're getting back $10,000 a year in cash flow. That's a 10% cash on cash return. This is a grand slam deal, right? This is amazing. If you had $100,000 and you could buy a property for, $100,000 and you pay cash and then you're walking away every single year with $10,000, that's incredible because remember, every single year this property is likely going to go up 3 to 5% a year, right? So you're going to make $3,000 to $5,000 in appreciation, and then of course you don't have a principal pay down anymore because you're automatically you don't have a mortgage, right? So there's nothing to pay down. There's no insurance to pay, or interest to pay, or no mortgage payment. But you've got that, and then you're losing some of the tax benefits because when you do have a mortgage payment, you can deduct the interest off your income, essentially. So you're going to lose out on some tax benefits. But of course, you can still claim depreciation and all this other stuff. Again, I'm not a chartered accountant, so please speak to an accountant for your local tax laws. But overall, this looks pretty good, right? Looks great. So that's if you paid all cash. Not bad, right? This could be the same thing if it was $500K, right? It's just going to be bigger numbers, okay? Now, let's take a look if you were to pay for it with mortgage, so with debt. So you've got the same $100,000 house, okay? But you're going to put 20% down. So you're going to put 20% down. And then, so you're going to have an $80,000 mortgage, okay? Because you put 20K down. You're obviously you're going to have some closing costs, that sort of stuff. But on a $100,000 property, it's going to be pretty small, right? So you might only be in for like 25 grand or so. But just for this, right? We're going to be getting debt, like a mortgage, right? On 80 grand. So this is if you financed it, right? So you're taking a little bit of risk, So on a 25-year term, I know in the States it's 30, so the payments would be a little bit smaller, but I'm in Canada, so I'm just doing this from Canada-wide, from a Canada sense. At a 5%, okay, interest rate, which right now here in Canada you can get 4%, but I'm just going to say 5%. Your monthly payment is $467.67. That does not include property tax. Your property tax is going to add another, what did we say? It was $1,000 a year on 100K. Might be a little bit more, but not a whole lot more. But we'll say we'll just keep it the same though for numbers' sake. So 1,000 divided by 12, so another $83 a month in taxes, property taxes, plus 467. So you're looking at $550.33 is your total payment. So this is your total payment each month. Okay, but now we still have these same expenses. Like, these expenses don't change, right? Just because you've paid cash or not, these expenses don't change, and your rent ain't gonna change, right? So you still get your taxes. We've already added that into the mortgage, so we still have our $1,200 in fixes, $1,200 in insurance, and then $1,000 for random things. So that's $3,400. We divide that by 12 because there's 12 months in a year. So you're adding another $283 in expenses a month. Okay? So we're going to add the $283 and the $550. Total $833.66 is expenses a month. Okay? So that right there is roughly, based off the numbers, it's the same house, the same expenses, but remember, we're bringing in $1,200 a month in rents. Okay? So our income is $1,200, and we're going to minus that from the $833. So our total cash flow each month is $366.33. Up here, when we paid cash, it was significantly more, right? So you were making 10K a year, right? We divide that by 12. We were making $833.33 a month in cash flow. Down here with debt, we are making $366.33 in cash flow. That's still really good. That's really good. These numbers, you're not really, chances are you're not going to find a house for $100,000 and then rent it out for $1,200, right? You might be, if you found if you can get $1,000 a month and you spend $100,000, that's called the 1% rule. That means your deal is good. You don't really find those anymore, right? So, the numbers that I'm giving you here, it isn't as pretty as this. In reality, your cash flow might be $166, and up here, instead of $833, it might be, $533. Okay, like, I'm just letting you know. But because of whole numbers here, I'm just showing you the difference. It doesn't really matter. But yes. So what do you miss out on? Well, here you get to then write off your interest payments, right? You still get to depreciate your property, all that stuff. So you're getting some added tax benefits, but also what you're now doing is you've only put down $20,000, plus the closing costs. So we'll say over here, you only put down $25,000, okay, in cash. Now, if you still had, that means you'd still have $75,000 left, because remember, you started with $100,000. You can either buy it in cash or decide to finance it. But with this, remember, you're still, even though you got debt on this, you're still getting appreciation. That 3 to 5% a year up here, you're still getting down here, right? You're still getting principal pay down as well. So out of this mortgage payment that you're doing each month of the $550, right? maybe 200 of that is going towards the principal, right? So that's like an extra $2,400 a year that's going onto the principal that we didn't even take into account into the money that we're actually making, because we're just talking about cash flow here. When you're paying it down, right, that is building up. And then over time, the majority, in the beginning of your payments, the most goes to interest because it's interest heavy, and then you pay down a principal. But as you hold it longer, you start paying more principal and less interest as time goes on. So these numbers really build up over time. So you still have all these things, but now you've got $75,000 left. So what can you do? Well, you can go out and you can go and safely purchase 2 more of these $100,000 properties, okay? And again, you're putting $80,000 in debt on each one of those, right? Because it's going to cost you $25,000 to get into each one of these properties. Do you see what I'm saying? So instead of having 1, you now have 3 of these. And if you have 3 of these, now you're looking at $366 times 3. Okay? So $366 a month times 3. Now you're looking at, between the 3 properties, $1,098 in cash flow a month, off the same $100,000 in cash that you started with. Now remember, all 3 of these properties are all going up 3 to 5% a year, right? So you're making, say, $2,400 to $5,000 a year on each one of those properties in appreciation. So that could be another $15,000 right there, okay? Plus, all 3, the tenants are slowly paying down the properties. Plus, you have those tax write-offs and those tax incentives on that as well. So do you see how this scales? But with this debt comes more risk, more responsibility. But it is much easier to scale when you are not just paying cash for all of your properties. Now, let's take this a step further, okay? And this is what I do, and this is to answer this question a little bit more about, why wouldn't I just pay cash and then use the cash flow? I mean, listen, if you just paid cash up here and you're making $10,000 a year, it's going to take you 10 years, okay? It's going to take you 10 years to make another $100,000 off of this at $10,000 a year. So in 10 years, you'll be able to buy another $100,000 property, but in 10 years, properties double in value, just about. So that $100,000 property is now $200,000. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm not saying you couldn't possibly go find another $100,000 property somewhere, but you're definitely going to get a lesser quality property that may not generate $1,200 a month or $1,000 a month. It might generate $600 a month, right? So it's just a slower way of doing it. And of course, each year you're raising your rent. So it might not actually take 10 full years. It might actually take 7 years for the next one. And then the one after that, it might take 5 if you're combining the 2, right? Everything scales. This is just the slower way of doing it, okay? But let's take it a step further, right? You've now got these 3 properties, right? Because you've opted to take debt, okay? Good debt. You've analyzed the deal. You know what the market rents are, right? They might not be as sweet as this, right? It might be a third of what this is. I don't know. It might be as good. I don't know your markets, right? But now you have 3 properties, okay? All for you paid $300,000 in total for all 3 of these properties, but you've now had them for 10 years. Well, now in 10 years, let's say the property have doubled in value. So now each one is worth $200,000 instead of $300,000. So let's go 3 houses. Oh, these drawings are terrible. But these are now worth $600K. So now you have $300,000 built in equity, right? Because you paid 3, the worst 6. Now you go, okay, I want to tap into this. Well, there's multiple ways you could do it, right? You could do a cash out refinance where you are remortgaging the debt, and you're adding more debt to each property. So your mortgage payments are going to go up, which is going to hurt your cash flow, but you're going to have chunks of money to go buy more properties. Or, so that we don't go down this long rabbit hole and we just answer this guy's question, you decide to sell one of these. You decide to sell one and it's worth 200. Okay. At this point, maybe 10 years down the road, you originally owed 80,000 on it. So let's say you owed 60K left. Okay. And it's worth 200. That leaves you a $140,000 spread. Obviously there's fees, commission fees, that sort of stuff. And let's just say you're not 1031 exchanging it. You're going to pay your taxes. Let's just say you walked away with $100,000. And after all fees, paid your capital gains tax, all that stuff, you're left with $100,000. So what do you do with that $100,000? You go and you pay off this property right here. Okay? And you had $60,000 left of debt on that property. So now you wipe that clean. You no longer have that mortgage. So that payment that you were doing up here, right, is gone off one of them. So now you have just added, you didn't add the $550 a month because remember, you still have property tax, but maybe you did because over those 10 years, rents go up. But let's just say you just added another $400 a month in cash flow because you don't have any debt on this anymore. So say at this point, this property was renting for $1,400 a month. Now you're cash flowing way more. And now you don't have any debt. You've deleveraged. You got rid of some of that debt. And you still have $40,000 left. Maybe you saved up another $20,000 and you paid off this $60K. And you paid that one off. So now you have two fully paid off properties getting $1,400 a month apiece. That's $2,800 right there in gross income minus your expenses. You are still going to be, because your expenses here is 283, 833, so 833. I mean, you're still now cash flowing a good amount of money. And you now own two properties. They're both paid off, free and clear, and they're still continuing to go up in value every single year. And now you've got that residual money coming in. So what I am doing is I'm in the accumulation phase. I'm in the scale phase, right? I've been pulling out. I haven't been selling properties. I did sell two, and that's a story for another time. But what I like to do is I like to refinance my properties one time to pull out the money that I had into it initially. So that way my cash flow and my return is infinite because I have no money in the deal anymore. And that usually takes me 4 to 5 years. Sometimes I can do it a little bit less. I've done one in 2 years, 3 months, and got all my money out and some. That's called the Burr strategy. I will have a dedicated video on that soon. But what I'm planning on doing is scaling as much as I can to accumulate as much good assets that generate some cash flow, some better than others, but have I can either do forced appreciation or I'm in areas that I know are going to continue to do well. And then I'm going to end up selling the assets that cause me the most grief or that are just, not really doing it from a cash flow perspective, but I have a ton of equity. And then I'm going to take that equity and pay down a couple of properties. Okay. So right now I actually have 2 single family homes that don't cash flow very well. Okay. One cash flows me $200 a month and the other one cash flows me $300 a month. Okay. Now with both of these, I have no money in the deal. I've already refinanced these once each and I pulled my money out. So this is just pure profit, but I paid for this one over here $205,000 back in 2012. And this one here, I paid $225,000 in 2015. Both of these, they're right next to each other. They're both worth the same amount, same bedroom, same floor plan, same. Right now, each one of them is worth $550,000. Okay? So we're looking at about 1.1 million between these two. Now, that means I have managed to add, say, $300,000 in equity in each over this last one I've had for 10 years, one I've had for 13 years, okay? So again, these have almost doubled in value. And to be honest, if I did strategic renovations, I could get this price up to $600K of each, but we're not going to get that deep. So obviously, this money and this money, it's nothing to write home about. It's $500 a month between the two. And I'll be frank with you, last year, I had a hot water tank that blew up and it ruined some floors, so that cost me $4,000. That $4,000 just wiped out all the cash flow from one of these in an entire year, right? So there's it's really just maintaining itself, but it's fine because I've been building up, I've been building up equity over time. So what I plan to do is when I'm in a position that, okay, I want to quit my day job or I want to, start de-risking a little bit, I'm going to sell these two properties, okay? And I'm going to realize this gain of, say, after all fees, everything like that. If I were to sell this year, which I'm not, but, what's going on with my thingy bobber? Oh, there we go. Let's just say I get $500,000 back, okay? After all fees, I've paid my taxes, paid my realtor fees, I have $500,000 in cash. What I plan to do is take that $500,000 and pay off a triplex, right? And at that point, I might be able to pay off two different triplexes, right? Depending on the debt. I know one triplex I have, I owe $430,000. So let's just say, for example, it's that one. I'd pay that off, and I'd still have $50,000 left. But that triplex is bringing in $1,800 for one, $1,825 for two, and $1,650 for the two-bedroom, right? So right now on that triplex, I'm actually cash flowing today about $1,700. But imagine if I didn't have a mortgage payment, right? That's $5,200 right there a month. Now, clearly I have some expenses, but since it's a triplex, the only expenses I have is snow removal, taxes, insurance, and I've got to heat and power the foyer area, right? So, my expenses might be $2,000 of this, right? Give or take. It's actually less, but let's just say $2,000. Now I'd be cash flowing $3,275 every single month, and that's accounting for maintenance, all of the stuff, all because I decided to sell these two that were making me $500 a month, right? Take out the cash, pay some capital gains, pay the fucking tax man, yippee-ki-yay. But now I've also deleveraged, so now I have less debt, right? So the banks are even more willing to give more debt if I need it in the future. But I'm also taking less risk, and now I've got that $3,275 a month coming in perpetuity. And that'll only get better as rents go up year after year. So if you do a 5% increase on all three of these, each year you're going to be adding another, $350, $400 a month in extra income. Well, not a month. That's a lie. It's really about like $225 a month. An extra $2,400 a year after year. That compounds. That's how it's done. And that's what I plan on doing. So to answer your question, I think I've done it. Yes, I, for one, do not pay all cash for properties. The only time I would pay all cash is if I need a quick closing, if I'm trying to be competitive. I'd pay cash, and then I would do the BRRRR strategy. I'd put my maintenance and repairs and all that other stuff up the value, and then I would put debt on it at the new appraised value. So that way I can get some cash out to go buy the next one, because there is power in scale. I showed you what it's like to just have one. Hey, Nothing to sneeze at. You buy a property all in cash, hey, there's nothing wrong with doing that. And don't ever let some person on the internet or your mortgage broker or your family or anybody tell you you're a fucking fool for paying all cash for a property. That is your decision. That is your risk tolerance. There is no wrong way to do this. It's not always about maximizing the sheer amount of return on your money at all times. There is an intangible thing called peace of mind. There is an intangible thing of being able to sleep at night, right? It's just the way it is. My house that I live in, I don't have a mortgage. I've paid this off years ago. I could easily take a mortgage out on this house and go buy an apartment building, a big apartment building with this and make thousands of dollars a month. But because of the line of work that I'm in, because of the peace of mind, the options, I decided to attack my mortgage aggressively, and it took me about 7 years, actually a little bit less, about 6 years to get to the point where I could pay off my principal residence. Some people look at me like I'm crazy. Why would you have all this money put in your house that's not getting you a return? It's because I sleep better at night knowing that my family has a place, a roof over the head, and the only thing I got to pay for is property taxes, and I sure as shit can afford to do that, right? And it also affords me the ability to say no to things in life. You know, if there's certain works and sponsors or different things that I just don't want to do, I don't have to do it now. And that allows me to recharge, focus, and, you know, tackle certain things with confidence. And if I need the money, it's there. You know what I mean? If a huge opportunity comes up, I don't have anything, I can tap into my principal residence or any of my other properties that I have. I don't have any other paid for properties, but I do have considerable amount of equity in several of my properties. I could go ahead and put a HELOC on those. I could do a cash out refinance, or I could sell them. This just gives me opportunity to do the things that I want to do at my pace. So there's no right or wrong answer. I will tell you from a number standpoint and from a return on investment standpoint, it's always best to grab debt, because you can, instead of spending $100K on one asset, you could get 3 or 4 assets, you know, because look, if you have $100,000, if you buy $100,000 in stock, okay, you get $100,000 in stock. That's cool. But if you have $100,000 in real estate and use leverage, $100,000, you can have $500,000 in asset management, right? Whoops. You can have 500 because you're gonna take 80% and put it on debt. You know, so you're holding more for less. But again, there's always risk involved. Okay, so that's that. Hopefully that answers your question. I'm being very transparent with you guys on how this stuff works. Obviously, I know some of these are dream numbers. It'd be nice to get more than 1% rule. I understand that, but the concept is all the same. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. And if you have any questions, put them down there and you just might see it on the next video. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy your day. Peace out.